If you act like this, don't expect him to stay. It hurts to hear that, I know, because maybe everything you did was out of love. You held it together, forgave more than you should have. You molded yourself, stayed silent, sacrificed, thinking that was a sign of maturity. But deep down, you only wanted one thing: to be chosen, for real, without doubts, without crumbs, without having to justify who you are. And maybe in the middle of all that effort, you forgot to look in the mirror. Because some actions that seem like love are, in fact, sophisticated forms of self-sabotage. And in each part of this video, you'll understand how what looks like devotion may actually be pushing away the very love you desire. There's no sugarcoating here, no toxic positivity, just truth. And if it hurts, it's because it hit where it needed to. So tell me, are you willing to really see yourself? Or will you keep saying it was just bad luck in love? When you become his emotional therapist and forget yourself, you know this role well. The one who listens, who understands, who carries his pain as if it were your own. You saw him broken, emotionally drained, full of unresolved issues with exes, with family, with himself. And you stepped in, tried to fix it, held his soul like it was too fragile to break again, while your own quietly shattered. Because every woman who tries to save a man is deep down begging to be loved in return. But no one says that. They call it empathy, maturity, true love. But in practice, it's neediness disguised as compassion. It's the hope that, by being essential to his healing, he'll choose you. But here's the invisible cruelty. Broken men don't fall in love with those who fix them. They lean, they depend. Sometimes they even say thanks. But love, real love, requires something you forgot to offer: your own presence. When you become his therapist, you lose your place as a woman. And the moment he heals, grows, finds clarity, you no longer fit into his new world. He doesn't see you as a partner. He sees you as support. And support isn't chosen, it's used while needed. Then you feel the pain so many women feel. I gave him everything, and he still left. But he didn't leave. He was never really there. He just stayed, for a while, until he got back on his feet. And you allowed it, because you believed love meant patching someone else up instead of looking at your own wounds. That's not strength, that's avoidance. Avoidance of your own pain, your own abandonment, your own need to be cared for. Because as long as you're busy saving someone, you don't have to face the emptiness inside you. The self-listening technique begins with one brutal question. What's left of me when he no longer needs saving? If the answer is nothing, then that wasn't love. That was trading yourself for validation. Stop trying to prove your worth through someone else's pain. It's not your job to be a shelter for someone who doesn't want to stay. And most of all, it's not your mission to fix a man so he can be whole for someone else. Your healing begins the day you decide that being understood matters more than being needed, that being seen is more valuable than being useful. You're not here to fix anyone. You're here to be whole. Even if that scares those who only knew how to connect with you when you were in pieces for them. The woman who gives too much, too soon, and then demands love that was never promised, you barely knew him. But something inside you said, he's the one. A good conversation, a powerful exchange, a look that felt like it saw your soul. And just like that, you were in, emotionally invested, planning a future, dreaming of stability, craving exclusivity, without him ever promising anything. You mistook intensity for security, and it wasn't out of naivety, it was exhaustion. Because those who've been deeply rejected learn to run toward any place that feels warm, even if it's just a flicker. This rushed giving isn't proof of connection. It's the reflection of a need you never learned how to name. It's the echo of emotional childhood where you had to fight to be seen, And now, as an adult, any attention feels like love. Any lingering touch becomes a story. One intense night becomes a relationship. But here's the truth. No one owes loyalty to your projection. You demand presence, commitment, reciprocity. But he never promised any of that. And you never asked. You just filled the blanks with hope, filled the silences with fantasy. Attachment theory shows that relationships that accelerate too fast often collapse. Because depth requires time, and real love requires built connection. You want to know if he feels the same? Ask, observe, wait. But first, ask yourself what's really going on here. Use the expectation mirror. What exactly did he say, and what did I assume? Do I like him, or the idea of finally being chosen? If he were emotionally available today, would I be ready for a real relationship, or just eager to be validated? These questions sting, because they expose a hard truth. Often, you're not in love with the man. You're in love with the hope of not being discarded again. Your urgency to be loved comes from an old wound of never being enough. That needs healing, not another rushed story. You don't have to give everything fast to prove you're intense. You need to learn how to observe, so you don't mistake crumbs for a feast. Real love doesn't rush. It asks for consistency. So next, time you feel that early euphoria, breathe, pause, watch. Because it might not be love. It might just be your loneliness calling any shelter home. True. The false independence that pushes real connection away. You say you don't need anyone, that you've learned to rely on yourself, that you don't want to depend on any man. And that's true, to a certain extent. You built your own life, took charge of your story, got stronger, created an emotional shield that repels anything unstable, ambiguous, or fragile. But what about when he pulls away? When he doesn't choose you? When he says, "I just don't feel a connection"? You ask yourself why. After all, you have it all: presence, intelligence, strength, stability. But maybe what's missing is exactly what you've learned to hide most: your vulnerability. Men don't walk away from your strength. They walk away from the coldness it sometimes creates. Your independence became a bunker. No one enters, no one touches, no one feels. And as empowering as it might seem, that's also a kind of loneliness. Because emotional armor isn't maturity, it's defense. And constant defense wears out anyone trying to get close. The other person feels like they have to earn every part of you, that they're being tested all the time, that there's an invisible competition, and any imperfection will be punished with distance. True emotional maturity isn't about not needing anyone. It's about allowing yourself to need someone without the fear of losing control. It's understanding that expressing need doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. That's why so many men approach you, but don't stay. They feel like they're being invited into a game where you've already decided you don't want to get attached, feel, or depend. And if it all goes wrong, you'll say, "See, I knew it." You protect yourself from being rejected by rejecting first, emotional language exercise, replace. "I can handle it on my own," with "sometimes, I wish I didn't have to." Replace "I'm cold because I'm strong" with "my strength is knowing where it hurts and staying open." Anyway, replace self-defense with presence. Do you want to be loved, or just admired from a distance like an untouchable trophy? Because real connection requires partial surrender. Yes, it requires exposure. It requires risk. And that's exactly where the beauty lies: in being chosen even when you're not perfect, in being held even when your strength falters. Independence is beautiful, but if it keeps love from entering, maybe it's time to recalibrate. 4. The silent cycle of giving everything and expecting him to read your mind. You do everything right. You show love through actions, care about the details, anticipate what he needs, avoid pressuring him. You're the woman who shows love through effort. And you expect him to notice, to appreciate, to give back, but he doesn't, or he does, but doesn't respond, and you implode inside. You feel a quiet rage, a frustration you can't even name. Because you're tired of being the one who gives everything and still isn't seen. Yet you keep going. If I just give more, if I'm more patient, more calm, more present, maybe he'll get it. But this cycle is cruel because it reinforces a deeply mistaken idea that love is a math problem where if you give everything, the other person will have to recognize your worth. But that's not love. That's emotional bargaining. You're giving like you're paying in emotional currency and waiting for him to buy your presence with reciprocity. But you never actually said what you felt, what you needed, what you expected. You believed the lie you were told. If it's real, he'll just know. But reciprocity science says otherwise. The human brain doesn't respond well to vague signals. It needs clear, direct input. What isn't spoken doesn't exist. What's implied doesn't connect. And so, you become the invisible woman, the one who loves silently and suffers in silence, hoping he'll become a mind reader. Method to break the cycle. Stop loving indirectly. Name your efforts. Name your limits. Name your pain. Instead of, I understand he's busy, say, I feel left out when there's no space for me in your routine. Instead of, he knows I care, say, I'm here because I choose to be, but I need to feel that this is mutual. Instead of, he should see how much I do, say, does what I do for us matter to you? You need to stop pretending. You expect nothing, when in reality, you expect everything. That pretending isn't maturity. It's fear of being rejected for seeming too much. But there's no real love without exposure. How many times did you say, it's fine, while screaming inside to be validated? Here's the truth. When you only show love through actions but never reveal your full self, you end up building an imaginary relationship where only one side feels. And there's no greater pain than this, to have given everything and realize the other person didn't even see it as love. The woman who tests. Instead of talks, you don't say it. You hint at it. You don't ask. You wait for him to guess. You disappear. You act cold. You pretend not to care. All to see if he'll chase you, if he'll notice, if he'll react. But what you call strategy is actually sabotage disguised as protection. You want connection, but you play like it's war. Why? Because rejection traumatized you. Because somewhere in your past, you learned that saying how you feel is risky, embarrassing, dangerous. So instead of saying, I need to know if I can count on you, you distance yourself to see if he misses you. Instead of saying, that hurt me, you respond with silence or sarcasm. Instead of saying, I feel insecure, you test his patience. But these tests come at a cost. And the cost is your peace. Because every little game you play to avoid the pain of vulnerability takes you further from what you truly want, a sincere, emotionally mature bond. Games don't build safety, they feed anxiety. And the worst part? When he fails the test, you confirm your biggest fear. That you're not enough, not loved, not seen. But did he really fail? Or did you set up a situation where any answer would disappoint you? Emotional maturity demands the courage to name things. Name what you feel, what you want, what you won't accept anymore. But that's hard. Because saying, I need clarity, means letting go of control. And you've spent your whole life trying not to lose anyone, even if that meant losing yourself. Second challenge. Practice. Every time you feel like testing him, stop. Count to 5, breathe, and ask yourself, if I said what I feel clearly, what's the worst that could happen? you'll realize what paralyzes you isn't how he might respond. It's the thought that if you show your full self and he leaves, then maybe you were never truly enough. Here's the hardest and most freeing truth. If he only understands you when you go silent, he's not ready to love you when you stay. You don't need to fake disinterest to be valued. You don't need to manipulate situations to feel safe. What you do need is to learn how to speak, to take a stand, to express pain without disguise. Because if your relationship needs constant testing, it's already failing at the basics: communication. So next time you want to play a game, ask yourself, am I trying to protect my heart, or am I afraid to face the truth that he was never really here for me? The answer might hurt, but it might also set you free. The invisible mistake of always trying to prove your worth. You enter the relationship like you're walking into a job interview. Impeccable resume. You're a great listener, adaptable, nurturing, attentive, always ready with the best version of yourself. Always willing to earn his affection. And on the outside, it looks like strength. But inside, it's exhaustion. Because you're constantly trying to be good enough. Not because he directly demands it, but because, deep down, you don't believe your ordinary self is worthy of love. You've learned to perform, to win people over, to earn your place through usefulness, not essence. This runs deep. It comes from emotional neglect in childhood, where love was conditional, where you had to behave, please, and stand out to be noticed, to be accepted, to maybe be loved. And that urgency followed you here. Now, in every new relationship, you subconsciously repeat the pattern. If I show him all that's good in me, he'll stay. He'll choose me. He'll see my worth. But he doesn't. Not because you lack value, but because in trying to be perfect, you disappeared. You faded. You became functional, but emotionally absent. Men connect with truth, with soul, with essence, not with performance. You try to be admired, but don't allow yourself to be vulnerable. And that slowly creates an emotional coldness. He can't explain, but he feels. Like there's always a filter between you. Like something essential is missing, even when you're right there. The halo effect makes this worse. You idealize him, put him on a pedestal. And to feel worthy, you force yourself to be a perfect 10. The problem? When he inevitably disappoints you, you feel humiliated because your devotion was built on fantasy, not reality. Unlearning exercise. Ask yourself, what do I offer when I'm not trying to be perfect? If the answer is nothing, it's because you still haven't learned to love yourself freely. And so you demand constant approval just to feel whole. But here's the secret. Real love isn't something you prove. It isn't earned through effort. It reveals itself when you stop performing. Do you want to be seen or just accepted when you're in costume? Because if you always have to be in performance mode to feel loved, then it's not you being loved. It's the polished, edited, self-censored version. And the question that remains is, how long will you keep abandoning yourself just to fit into the eyes of someone who doesn't even know who you truly are? 7. When you change for him and forget what made you unique. In the beginning, you were you, with your quirks, your rituals, your truths, your unique way of seeing the world. But slowly, almost without noticing, you started to change. First, it was the small things. You stopped wearing that dress he didn't like. You quit talking about the topics he found silly. Then came the silences, the internal edits, the invisible censorship. You started reshaping yourself, adjusting, losing yourself, and all of it for what? Because he started looking at you differently. And desperate for approval, you thought, maybe if I change this, he'll truly choose me. And so, you changed. So much that one day, you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize yourself anymore. The woman you once were, authentic, spontaneous, full of contrast, had been replaced by someone agreeable, who avoids conflict, who says yes out of fear of seeming difficult, who accepts crumbs and tries to seem grateful. And the worst part? He didn't stay, because men don't fall in love with emotional chameleons. They may enjoy them, use them, even like them, but real love requires realness. And there's no truth in someone who erases her own essence just to fit into someone else's fantasy. You tried to be the ideal woman, but forgot that what made you unforgettable was exactly what you erased: your intensity, your authenticity, your courage to be who you are without apologizing. The principle of internal coherence explains this. Desire is fueled by alignment between who you are inside and how you show up on the outside. When that coherence breaks, your energy fades. Your magnetism disappears, the bond becomes effort. You became a reflection of what he wanted. But what about you? What did you want? What did you give up just to be chosen? Rescue technique. The 7 essence list. Write down now with brutal honesty. What did you love about yourself before him? What rituals, hobbies, styles of speaking or dressing did you abandon? What parts of you started to feel too much just because he couldn't handle them? List 7 elements of your essence. Then ask, why did I feel I had to give all this up to be accepted? That answer will hurt, but it will also save you, because every time you erase yourself to fit in, you teach someone that your love comes with self-sacrifice. And no love that requires you to die inside is worth living. Do you still recognize yourself in the mirror? Or have you become the reflection of what he wanted to see? Maybe it's time to stop adjusting and start recovering. If any of these truths hit you, then you already know it's not just about him. It's about you, about everything you stopped being in your attempt to be loved. But now it's your turn to stop shrinking, to stop chasing, to come back to yourself. If this video resonated with you, take a deep breath and drop a comment. I choose to come back to myself. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because here you won't find empty quotes. Here there's raw truth, exactly as your story deserves. And remember, you don't have to be perfect to be loved. You just have to be whole enough to stop accepting halves. See you in the next one.